Okay, so one of the classes that I teach at Ozark is philosophy. And philosophy uses a lot of what are called thought experiments. Thought experiments. A thought experiment is a hypothetical situation designed to challenge your thoughts and challenge your assumptions, sort of like this. Here's an example of a really short thought experiment. If you gradually replaced every part of your car over the next 5 years, would you have the same car 5 years from now that you have today? That's one really simple thought experiment. These are designed to get you to think, why do I believe? What do I believe? What are the consequences of my beliefs? Parables, which we've been talking all about these parables this week, parables are kind of like these thought experiments. A parable is a short story inviting us to think about God's kingdom from a particular perspective. What if God's kingdom was like a farmer sowing his seed? What if following Jesus was like building a house on a particular foundation? What if the kingdom of God was like a treasure hidden in a field? They're just designed to get you to think, to challenge you, to see the kingdom from a different perspective. I need, for this next part of my message, I need a few volunteers. Now, I've already chosen my volunteers, so they're not actually volunteers. Could I have the people that I talked to before, this morning, could you make your way up to the stage? You're going to help me with this next part. So there's a famous thought experiment. There's a famous thought experiment that these folks are going to help me with. Okay? Did you forget? Yes. Oh, it's fine. All right, so this is going to be real simple. I'm just going to ask you a few questions. All right? So, first question, what's your name?
Derek.
All right, Derek. How old are you, Derek?
29.
Derek is 29. Derek is also bald like me. We were talking about this before, backstage, before the worship. What do you do for a living?
I'm a worship pastor.
You're a worship pastor. Do you have kids?
0.
0 kids. Okay. Last question. Do you have any sort of special skills?
I don't think so.
You don't think you have any special skills? Okay. Other than tattoos, I like the gauges.
Thank you.
Okay. Next person. What's your name?
Jasper.
Jasper, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Jasper, how old are you?
I'm 46.
46. Whew. Okay. Jasper's 46.
They didn't expect me.
Jasper, do you have kids?
I have 3 kids.
3 kids. What are their ages?
Elijah is 15. My daughter Shannon is 13. And my youngest boy Nathan is 10.
Wonderful.
They are.
Okay. What do you do for a living, Jasper?
I am the director of CIY Europe.
Okay. All right.
Just Europe, everything.
Okay. You're the king of Europe. Jasper, do you have any sort of special skills? I hear you're a dancer.
Dancing is not my skills. Special skills would include a little bit of soccer. Okay. Soccer.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, great. So, a little bit of soccer.
A little bit special.
Quite a bit more soccer than most of us have, probably. All right, thank you. Hand the microphone. So tell me your name.
Kirsty.
Kirsty.
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry, I have to ask you this. How old are you?
28.
28. Okay. Do you have children?
No.
No children. What do you do for a living, Kirsty?
I am a manager of a festival, just like this one, called Magnitude in Scotland.
Okay. All right. Wonderful. So, do you have any special skills?
So I used to be able to move my ears without touching them.
That is a wonderful skill to have. So she can move her ears. Awesome. Okay. Bragger. Okay, thank you, Kirsty. What's your name?
My name is Phil.
Phil. Phil, how old are you?
I'm 26.
26.
Turning
Okay.
27 on Sunday.
Wonderful. Okay. Okay. Phil, do you have any children?
Thankfully not.
No
I'm
children.
very happy I'm single and I'm
Single.
enjoying the single life right now. It's
Okay.
good. It's good.
Okay. I appreciate that. Phil, what do you do for a living?
I'm a youth pastor in Scotland. If you don't know where that is, it's UK. If you don't know where the UK is, it's Britain, another word for it. And I am, youth pastor there.
Okay.
12 weeks in.
12. Whoa, okay.
Yeah,
All right.
new.
So kind of new. Do you have any special skills?
I can't move my ears, and I can't really do anything like you guys have mentioned, but is playing basketball and
All right.
soccer, like dazzling with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you played basketball yet this week?
I have with a few guys up here,
So
some other people around.
can he
yeah.
ball? Is he?
Yeah,
can?
there's some
Okay.
ballers over there.
Okay. All right. Well, I will participate too. My name is Chad. I am 44 years old. I have 3 kids. I have a 17-year-old, 16-year-old, and 12-year-old. I am a college professor. My special skill is that I earned a black belt in Taekwondo. Jasper, it's true. A black belt in Taekwondo when I was in 5th grade, which means absolutely nothing. Actually, less than nothing. But that's my special skill. Okay, so why did we do this? There's a famous thought experiment called the lifeboat thought experiment, and it goes sort of like this. Imagine the 5 of us are shipwrecked, and we find ourselves floating in a life raft after the shipwreck. The problem is the life raft is only designed for 4 people. And of course, you can see there are 5 of us. If the 5 of us all remain in the life raft together, none of us will survive. The life raft will sink. We will all perish. And so we have to make the difficult decision, who are we going to throw out of the life raft? And this is a famous thought experiment. It's designed to sort of get you to think about your values, your ethics. We're actually not going to answer that question, you maniacs. I heard some of you, though. We're not going to answer that question, but that's what the thought experiment is about. Who are we going to throw out of the life raft? Okay, I want you to keep that in mind. Thank you for your help. Okay, see, I told you I wasn't going to embarrass you. Okay, so life raft. You've got that in your mind, right? Now, imagine for a moment if all of life was like that life raft experiment. Imagine if all of life was like that life raft experience, and you are there in that life raft trying to justify your own existence. Trying desperately to keep from getting thrown out of the life raft, right? Like if you were in that circumstance, if you were one of the 5 people on the stage, your mind, if you're being honest with yourself, your mind would probably go towards, what do I have to do to keep in this life raft? What do I have to do to keep from getting thrown overboard? How do I need to justify myself? Everything that you did, everything that you said would be aimed at keeping yourself from being thrown overboard and proving your value, proving your worth to your peers. Now, for a moment, imagine that the whole world is exactly like this lifeboat. And we're all in it together. Every single one of us in this room is all in it together. Just look around you. This lifeboat way of thinking is all around us every day. Sports. Take sports, for example. Some people get so invested in sports that they feel personally validated when their team wins. When their team wins, they use the word we. We won. But when their team loses, it's they. They lost. We won, but they lost. So a lot of us, we use sports to actually kind of validate our identity. We want to be associated with winning. We don't want to be associated with losing. And when we are associated with losing, we get kind of defensive about it, right? Why? Because it makes us feel insecure. It makes us feel vulnerable. Some people do this with academics. I know when I was in high school, that was me. I was so obsessed with trying to get as good a grades as possible. but I had all the wrong motivations. The reason why I was so obsessed with my grades was because of my own insecurity. I wanted to prove to other people just how valuable, just how worthwhile I really was. And the way that I did that was through my grades. My daughter, the daughter that I kind of made fun of yesterday, she is a marvelous musician. She is a fantastic singer. And unfortunately, I hear some of this same thinking coming out of her when it comes to her musical talent. She uses this talent to kind of justify herself and compare herself to other people, to her peers. Social media, I think, has encouraged some of this thinking. Some of you were in my elective the other day. I talked about this a little bit. I talked about Instagram. Those who were in my elective, you remember that? We talked about Instagram a little bit. Instagram allows us, and I'm on Instagram, so I'm not a hater, but Instagram allows us to do two artificial things to our lives. You remember what those two things are? Filter and edit. So Instagram allows us to filter our experience. To edit our experience. So we don't put every single picture of ourselves up on social media. We only put the pictures of ourselves that are going to look a particular way, that are going to be impressive to other people. So we edit our experience. And even the pictures that we put on social media, we carefully filter them so they look even better than they were in reality. So we're projecting an artificial image of ourselves, an artificial picture of ourselves. And why do we do that? Why do we do all these things? We do all these things because of lifeboat thinking. Because we're trying to justify ourselves. We want to prove our worth. We want to prove our value. We're insecure. And so we put this artificial image of ourselves out there in the hopes that other people will validate us. In the hopes that other people will like that or retweet that or tell us how cute we are or whatever the case may be. Like we want to be validated in the eyes of others because of our insecurity. Because of this lifeboat thinking. We're so scared. We're so terrified that people are going to look at us and one day they're going to make the decision, you know what, I'm not sure that she's really all that worth it. I'm not really sure that she matters. And they're just going to chuck us over the edge of the lifeboat. Lifeboat thinking is all around us every day. And it even affects the way that we think about God. I'm a more faithful person than this other guy. I put in more hours than this other girl. I've done more. I've sacrificed more. I've been a better person. I go to church. I serve. I even serve in the nursery. I do all these things. I am a good person. I am a good Christian. I am important. I am worthwhile. Surely God has noticed that. And so we feel insecure in our identity. And so we feel the need to prove our worth to God. We feel the need to prove our worth to others. And that's kind of what this parable is all about this morning. Jesus tells a parable about a landowner. Actually, was that parable read this morning? I don't think it was read this morning. Okay, I got to read it. It's in Matthew 20. Hold on, let me get there. Here's what the parable says. For the kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out early in the morning to hire workers for his vineyard. He agreed to pay them a denarius for the day and sent them into his vineyard. About 9 a.m, he went out and saw others standing in the marketplace doing nothing. He told them, "You also go and work in my vineyard, and I will pay you whatever is right." So they went. He went out again at about noon and about 3 p.m. and did the same thing. About 5 p.m, he went out and found still others standing around. He asked them, "Why have you been standing here all day long doing nothing?" "Because no one has hired us," they answered. We said to them, 'You also go and work in my vineyard.' When evening came, the owner of the vineyard said to his foreman, 'Call the workers and pay them their wages, beginning with the last ones hired and going on to the first.' The workers who were hired about 5 p.m. came and each received a denarius. So when those came who were hired first, they expected to receive more. But each one of them also received a denarius. When they received it, they began to grumble against the landowner. 'These who were hired last worked only 1 hour,' they said, 'and you've made them equal to us, who have borne the burden of the work and the heat of the day.' But he answered one of them, 'I am not being unfair to you, friend. Didn't you agree to work for a denarius? Take your pay and go. I want to give the one who was hired last the same as I gave you. Don't I have the right to do what I want with my own money, or are you envious because I am generous?' So the last will be first, and the first will be last." So Jesus tells this story about a wealthy landowner who hires these workers throughout the day. The first crew he hires early in the morning and promises them a denarius. Now, a denarius is just 1 day's wage. So he promises to pay them a day's wage for a day's worth of work. Throughout the day, he continues to hire more and more laborers. He even hires a group of laborers at 5 p.m, right before quitting time. The shocking twist at the end of the story is that the owner of the vineyard pays everyone the same amount. So he starts with those who he hired last, and he pays them a full day's wage, 12 times more than what they should have expected. And the people who were hired first, early in the morning, they're like, "Oh, goody. If he's paying them a full day's wage, surely he's noticed our hard work. Surely he's noticed the struggle that we've had all day long. Surely he's going to pay us more than what he promised." But he ends up paying everyone the exact same wage, 1 day's wage worth of work. And the people who were hired first, they start to grumble. They start to complain. That's not fair. It's not fair. And you know what? They were right. It wasn't fair. Imagine you took a class. You took anybody in AP chemistry this past semester? I took AP chemistry. Was the hardest class I ever took in high school. It was so hard. Now imagine you're in a really hard class, like AP chemistry, okay? You work and you struggle all semester long on that class. You're putting in more work on that class than you've put in any other class. And you work and you struggle, and finally by the end of the semester's done, and you actually earn an A in the class. Imagine if there's another person in the class, they actually joined that class in the last week of the semester. Like they missed most of the class. They join the last week of the semester, they only do one assignment in the semester, and at the end of the semester, they get the same grade that you got. Wouldn't you be a little bit upset about that? Like, what the crud? What's going on? That's not right. That's not fair. And that's exactly what this parable is saying. The owner of the vineyard, he's not being fair. He's not being fair. But the owner responds to those who are grumbling. He responds in 2 ways. The first thing he says is, "I am just. I have paid you exactly what I promised to pay you. I am just." The second thing that he says is, not only am I just, I'm also generous. The field, after all, belongs to me. It's my field, not yours. So why are you envious of my generosity? Literally, the text says there, why are your eyes full of evil because of my generosity? You know what's going on here? Have your eyes ever been full of evil? Like you look at how others are succeeding, you look at what others are getting, the recognition that others, and your eyes become full of envy, full of jealousy, full of evil. They were so jealous of the generosity of the landowner that their eyes became full of resentment and jealousy. Do you recognize the lifeboat thinking in this story of the disgruntled workers? Look at us. Look at what we've done. We're so much more worthy than they are. And this kind of thinking leads to resentment, which causes us to pout about grace rather than to celebrate it. Rather than having joy for what others have received, we can only think about ourselves. Here's the thing. God's kingdom is not like that lifeboat. God's kingdom isn't a competition for clout. Because, now hear me on this, God's kingdom isn't fair. And that's a good thing. God is a just God, but God isn't a fair God. Because here's the truth. None of us, not a single one of us in this room, deserves God's grace, forgiveness, and mercy. Not a single one. But he's given it to us anyway. And there's so much freedom in that. We don't have to argue now about our status. We don't have to constantly prove ourselves. We don't have to be resentful and anxious about the way that God might be using other people. We can simply delight in a God who has called all of us, no matter where we're coming from, no matter what we've done, he's called all of us to live and to serve in the kingdom. And that's something not worth grumbling about. That's something worth celebrating. Let's pray.